Yo, what's going on, guys? KrispyFlakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispies. For today's video, we have a video that I've been meaning to watch for a few days now. This is a video by Austin Sweat titled 8 Greatest Failed Trades That Would Have Changed Everything. So I'm very curious what these trades are. Just because, you know, it's like sometimes like a trade will be about to go down and last second will get like just shut down for whatever reason. I know a big popular one, of course, is Chris Paul was supposed to go to the Lakers. Who knows how that would have changed the NBA. So let's check out 8 of the greatest failed trades that would have changed everything.
The most exciting things about every NBA season are all of the trades and which players end up on new teams and watching and seeing just how they fit in. Now, huge trades don't happen every year, but when they do, they can change everything.
I would say the past few seasons, like, there's been like a lot of like big time trades. I'll say as of late. I know like not every year there's like not always like a blockbuster trade, but it seems like one sort of big name always gets traded around the trade deadline.
But not every proposed trade works out. So we're going to be looking back at the 8 biggest failed trades that would have changed everything. Now, a couple of these I did mention in my 10 greatest trades that almost happened video, but I wanted to go more in depth on them here. And the first one's an honorable mention with the failed trade of Anthony Davis to the Lakers earlier this year.
What could have been?
I'm not going to go into it because it just happened, but we did have to mention it because of how big it was. The only thing I'll say on it is Dell Demps definitely deserved to be fired, and I don't see him ever getting another job as a GM for a team after refusing that trade offer from the Lakers. But now that we mentioned that one, let's get on to the real list with number 1, which is Justise Winslow to the Boston Celtics. This is a move that could have easily made this Celtics roster look much worse and destroyed their historic rebuild. Because during the 2015 NBA draft, Danny Ainge and the Celtics wanted Justise Winslow so bad that they offered the Hornets 4 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for the 9th overall selection that year to draft him. I don't know if the crazier part about this is that they made this offer or that Charlotte said no so they could draft Frank Kaminsky.
We gotta give Justise Winslow, though, at point guard has been pretty nice for the year. I just gotta say that. He has not been bad at the point guard spot. He's not worth no 4 first-round picks, though. Damn, they want him that bad.
This is why some teams are just always bad. But at one point, Ainge said there was a time when he thought this is getting a little out of control.
A little bit.
We're putting a lot of eggs in one young player's basket. Now, there was never any clarification on exactly what picks were offered, but with some of the Celtics picks, that year they got Terry Rozier, the next year they selected Jaylen Brown, and then the year after that, they got Jason Tatum. They would have definitely given up Rozier, and there's a chance they could have even lost out on Jaylen or Jason. And even though Justise is turning into a solid player, he would still have to get much better for this to have not been a complete mistake by Boston if it actually went down. Number 2.
That would have been ironic with if the Celtics would like trade away all their picks after, of course, you know, the whole situation with the Brooklyn Nets and them trading away all their picks to the Celtics would have been kind of ironic.
Chris Paul to the Lakers. Most of us, Lakers fans especially, remember when Chris Paul was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers until David Stern called it off. It was a trade involving the Lakers,
he allowed to call it off?
And the Rockets.
I don't get that.
Put
like, why was he allowed to?
LA, Pau Gasol on the Rockets, and Lamar Odom, Goran Dragic.
Wait, what's the trade? Houston receives Pau Gasol, who was still a solid player at the time. We got Lamar, Kevin, Dragic, Luis, and a first round. That's a fair trade. Like, that is a fair trade. I don't know why this was shut down at all.
Kevin Martin and Luis Scola on the Hornets. For LA, it would have teamed CP3 up with Kobe like they wanted, which meant that he most likely would have re-signed with them. And the next year would have given them a big 3 of Kobe, Dwight Howard, and Chris Paul. One that, with how all of them were playing at the time, looked like it would have definitely made them championship contenders. And then it would have only hurt the Rockets, because sure they would have gotten Pau, but this Rockets team back then really wasn't going to do much even with the addition of him. And if they had traded away Kevin Martin, that meant that they couldn't use him to trade for James Harden later on. And the Pelicans were saved by the veto too, because with the players they actually got, it led them to being so bad that they landed the first overall pick in the draft. AKA Anthony Davis. Well, I mean, it turns out getting Anthony Davis never turned into anything for them anyways, but you get the point. If they would have gotten the original trade of Odom, Dragic, Martin, and Scola, it probably would have given them a better record that year, caused them to miss out on AD, and would have probably led them to staying mediocre for all these years. Which is what they've done anyways, but again, you get the point. Number 3, Kevin Love for Klay Thompson. Back in 2014, Kevin Love was thought of as one of the best power forwards in the league, and had just put up 26, 12, and 4.5 assists per game on the season. But he wanted out of Minnesota, so they were finally going to trade him that summer. And the best they found for him was Klay Thompson, who wasn't a star yet, but was looking like a...
It could have been Klay and LeBron and Kyrie?
great young shooting guard who had just averaged 18 a game. And the Warriors had just gotten knocked out of the first round, and with Curry beginning to play like a star, they felt like they had to make a big move to take the team to the next level. And they really didn't want to trade Clay, but they knew they had to do something big. And of course it made sense for the Timberwolves because it would have given them a great young player to build around.
My bad. Yeah, okay, we went on the Timberwolves, not the Cavaliers. Okay, that makes more sense.
Both sides had really agreed on the deal until Jerry West caught wind of it, where he then threatened to quit the team if the trade went through. And obviously Jerry was right, because we've seen what keeping Clay has turned into. But if it had gone through, Draymond may never have been a starter, or made the impact that he has. They probably wouldn't have won their 3 championships, or gotten 73-9, and without Clay in the backcourt, Curry probably wouldn't have broken out into a 2-time MVP. Kevin Durant wouldn't have joined the team, and the Warriors wouldn't be the current day Monstars, which I'm sure a lot of people would have enjoyed. But another positive would have been the fact that we would actually be seeing Klay Thompson's true potential on the Minnesota Timberwolves today. Something we may never get to see if he re-signs with Golden State this offseason. Number 4, Jonas Valanciunas for
Oh my god, that's not a bitch-ass trade!
We're always going to look back at and laugh. I mean, most of the deals involving James Harden weren't great anyways, because nobody really knew his true potential, and even what OKC ended up getting wasn't equal value. But they really almost traded Harden for Jonas Valanciunas, Jose Calderon, and either Terrence Ross or DeMar DeRozan. Alright, so if they would have gotten DeMar, then it would have been a pretty good move. But I couldn't find anything out there that determined which of these two were really going to get traded. But you include DeMar and it's a good move. Don't include him and OKC only gets Terrence Ross, and the Raptors would have 2 starting shooting guards. So it could have ended up very bad for the both of them. And this trade really almost happened. The crazy part was though that the Thunder were the ones that made the offer for either deal. And even crazier, they wanted to do it because of Valanciunas.
Oh no!
Solid 10 and 10 guy.
And even crazier than that, the Raptors were the ones that said no. This would have put the Raptors nearly on the level they're at right now a long time ago. But hey, at least they still ended up getting Marc Gasol out of Valanciunas. And for OKC, it could have teamed Jonas and DeMar DeRozan with Durant and Westbrook, but with that team, I don't think it would have made a huge difference in the outcome of their success and KD eventually leaving anyways. But it's still a crazy trade to think about that almost happened. Number 5, Carmelo Anthony to the Nets. Back when Carmelo Anthony was on the Nuggets and looking to be traded, there were a few teams that were trying to make a trade for him. And besides the Knicks, the Nets were probably the closest. Who were the Nets going to trade? There was a deal in place in September of 2010 for Denver to send him there that involved the Hornets and the Jazz too, but Denver backed out at the last minute because they weren't ready to trade him yet. But then 4 months later, the Nets tried constructing a new deal that involved the Pistons. And this was a big one. It was going to send Rip Hamilton, Carmelo, and Chauncey Billups to the Nets.
Oh my god! It would have been my 2000. It would have been one of the Pistons never drafted Darko.
Denver would get in 2 future first-round picks and 6 players, including Derek Favors, Devin Harris, and Anthony Morrow. And then it would include some moves that would help Detroit in the long run. The deal was said to have been close and almost there, but they could never get the final details worked out. So it never happened. And instead, a month later, the Nets would trade for Darren Williams, eventually sign Joe Johnson, and destroy their team with the Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett trade. Even with this Melo trade, instead of signing Darren Williams, or even with him, they still probably would have made similar moves and destroyed their franchise. But hey, even if they didn't, by judging Carmelo's Knicks career, I don't think he would have brought the Nets much more success anyways. And as for Denver, they're lucky they declined, because as we all know, Devin Harris and Derek Favors never turned out as good as expected in the long run. And then we got another move involving the Nets, with number 6, when they almost got Dwight Howard. Less than a year after the Melo trade failed and they got Darren Williams instead, Dwight Howard requested to be traded there right before they moved to Brooklyn. So they offered Brook Lopez and 2 first-round picks for him, but the Magic declined. And this is big because—
why are they showing out their first-round picks like this? Like, come on, Nets, you gotta stop with that. Yo, my bad.
Would have saved the Nets from destroying themselves with that Paul Pierce and KG trade a few years later, because their picks would have been used to get Dwight, and they wouldn't have as many available to use for those 2 guys. And this move would have definitely been an upgrade from that, but also would have only given them a player who was never like their former superstar self again. We gotta give props to the Nets though for going after all these stars, but every single player they got, or went after, wasn't ever as good as the player they used to be.
It was a
their courage to go all in was there, but their knowledge of players' futures, not so much. Number 7, Steph Curry for Amari Stoudemire. This is one that wasn't really too close to happening, but it was still considered. The Warriors had the 8th pick going into the 2009 NBA draft, and they were going to use it to pick Steph Curry, which they did. But before that, the Phoenix Suns, who had Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash, offered
Nash and Curry in the backcourt? Oh my god.
Amari for Steph Curry. Now keep in mind, this Suns team had just finished with a 61-21 record 3 years prior, a 55-27 record the year after, and then dropped down to 46-36 the year before the draft. Partly because Amari only played 53 games because of an injury. And the reasoning for this trade offer was because they wanted to add a sharpshooter next to Steve Nash in Mike D'Antoni's 7-second offense. But the move would have left them without a big man and would be teaming up a 35-year-old Nash with a rookie Steph Curry. So you gotta believe that this was their attempt to start to blow their team up and start a rebuild. And the Suns GM at the time just so happened to be Steve Kerr. Said that the deal was actually really close. But of course the Warriors made the smart move because they were in no place to start trying to make a playoff run, and they correctly predicted that Stoudemire would turn out to be injury prone. And that decision was one of them that led to them being the dynasty they are today. And while we're on the subject of Steph Curry, there's one more failed trade he was in with number 8, when he was almost sent to the Bucks.
Oh, him and
this
Giannis,
move
man,
came extremely close to happening.
Game over.
So after Steph was successfully drafted by the Warriors, he was teamed up with Monta Ellis, and the two formed a pretty solid backcourt. But when it came down to the Warriors taking their team to the next level, they had to pick a leader and a star player to build around moving forwards. And the Bucks, on the other hand, were trying to make a run in the playoffs. So the Golden State Warriors actually offered Steph for Andrew Bogut.
Look at his lips.
But the Bucks said no because the medical team didn't trust his past with ankle injuries. So they instead traded for Monta Ellis. And can you imagine where this went down the other way? Where Curry was on the Bucks and Monta stayed on the Warriors. The Bucks' new owner doesn't like to think of that too much, which is why he fired that entire medical staff right after he bought the team later that year. But if this trade went the other way, the league would be nothing like it is today. As we know, Monta's game slowly declined after getting traded, and he's been out of the league for a couple of years.
He should be
the Warriors today would probably just be another average team, and the Bucks would probably not have Giannis right now. And even though they would have Curry, there's a good chance he wouldn't be as good as he is, because he wouldn't have all the experiences he had in Golden State. Playing with Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, and Durant, and playing for Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. He would probably still end up being great, but there's no telling if he would have ever reached his true potential. And there's no doubt that the Warriors front office has been one of the best in the league these past few years, so there's also no certainty that Milwaukee would have surrounded Steph with the pieces he needed to be an MVP or an NBA champion. Or he could have been just as dominant on the Bucks, and they could be today's super team. And with situations and trades like this that almost happened, those are the kinds of things we're all left to think about today. And something else to think about is this question: can listening make you a better basketball player? And the answer is easily yes when you're listening to Audible. Because
okay. Nice transition right there. It's crazy to think about, because like at the time, you think about like Curry for Bogut. It's like at the time people were saying that Curry was not going to be a great NBA player. They're saying he was too small. While Bogut was like a former number 1 pick, he was a good defensive player. But now you look back at that, and we're just like what were they thinking? So hindsight is definitely something to consider out there. But yeah, some of these were probably a good thing. A lot of these ended up failing.